Hello everybody, welcome to this brand new video. If you've noticed up on social media, on my Twitter and Facebook mainly, asking a question, what toy line from an animated series, animated show would you like to see get a resurgence now, like a modern upscale, something that's been long since dead. There's not been anything for it. Upon posting that on my social medias, on Facebook and Twitter, I have had a couple of people comment a couple of choices. I've had one from Bisto or Richard, the main man. Thank you for commenting. He said he'd like to see a resurgence of the toy line, maybe the show itself, of Jace and the Wheeled Warriors. Now, I'm not massively familiar with that series. I know of it. I know it lives and it happened, but I never watched it as a kid. But it is a series I'd like to just check out, just for interest. I mean, there was quite a few series that was released in the 80s they have incredible theme songs. I know the theme songs to them, but I just never watched them. And then I had one from a guy called Drew. He wants to see SWAT Kats make some sort of a comeback. SWAT Kats is... I think I might have watched SWAT Kats, but I can't remember massively much about it. I think SWAT Kats must have aired... I think it did air in the 90s. I don't know if it was re-aired in the 90s or if it officially aired in the 90s or not. I don't know. But I do remember SWAT Kats, and I think I used to watch it when I was really young. But again, I can't remember much about it. So SWAT Kats, I would love to see a resurgence. I'd love to see the toy line return. Like an updated series and maybe an updated toy line. That would be pretty cool. I think SWAT Kats would really work now. But yeah, thank you very much to Rich and Drew for their contributions on Facebook. There has been a couple of toy lines that have had some sort of resurgence in recent years. The Visionaries got some sort of a kind of like a bit of resurgence, but it was I think it was one specific character. I've forgotten the name of the guy, but there was one specific character that was brought back, and I think it was an exclusive for, I don't know if it was an SDCC exclusive or something like that. I could be completely wrong with that, but I think they only brought back one character, and as kind of like a throwback thing. Bucky O'Hare, which is a series that didn't last very long at all. I think it only lasted maybe a year or a season on TV when it aired. But it had a very interesting toy line, and I think a lot of the toys, not many people know of Bucky O'Hare. It's one of those things, not many people really remember it. I mean, I never actually watched Bucky O'Hare. I only kind of recognise it, because I think I might have maybe seen it around in the 90s maybe. Or maybe, I don't know, I recognise it, but I've never watched it myself, the show or the animated series. But the toys or the figures have been getting a resurgence as well, and I've got a couple. I've got Bucky O'Hare, and I've got, I think it's Jenny, which is, I think is his girlfriend. I have no idea. Off this new line. So I've got that's kind of made a resurgence, and then I've heard rumours that Mask is making a resurgence, and I also know G.I. Joe made a bit of a resurgence a few years ago with G.I. Joe Renegades, but it didn't do very well, the animated series. I don't think it really worked. Getting off on that now, I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, so there's a couple of ideas of some that I know off the top of my head that have kind of made some sort of a comeback, more of a nostalgic collector's thing. Now, what's interesting with the Bucky O'Hare figures, they've actually been upscaled and they've been given a little bit more articulation. The original ones were really basic figures that had really basic range of articulation, and they were like little, like squashed, kind of like a squashed down character design. And but I've forgotten the company, but I've got Bucky O'Hare and I've got Jenny, like I said, and they both look brilliant. They look really, really nice, but they've been given a bit more articulation, as in they've got elbow movement, the hands twist, and obviously they've got interchangeable features as well. There's a couple that I can remember off the top of my head from back in the day that I would love to see get a resurgence that hasn't done yet. I haven't really seen anything from. Now, one of these is an 80s series. It was released in the 80s. I believe it might have been about 85, 86. Do not quote me on that. I do not specifically know what year it aired. I'm completely guessing. I could be completely wrong. The reason why I'm saying about 85, 86 is because most of the G1 Transformers cast were in this specific series, in the animated series. And this series I'm talking about is Dino Riders. But I've got the entire series, apparently. I managed to pick it up when I was, years ago, probably when I was about 17, 18 years old. And so I picked it up from a local co-op. Well, it's now co-op. I think it was back in the day. It was a Summerfield or something. And I picked it up because it's that my supermarket started selling the odd DVD here and there, and I picked it up and thought, bloody hell, Dino Riders! God, that's a blast from the past. I remember watching that, and I bought it. It was like under £10 for the whole. It says complete collection. Upon looking at it, I'm not sure if it is the complete collection or if it's just like the first season. I'll have to do some research on it. And when I was a kid, the toys really resonated with me because I don't think I actually got any. I wanted some, but I don't think I actually got them. I don't think I actually had any when I was a kid. But the idea of Dino Riders really resonated with me. And I was a big fan of dinosaurs. I was, a massive fan of dinosaurs, and I loved anything to do with robots because obviously I was a Transformers fan when I was a kid as well. So I loved anything to do with that. But, what was interesting as well is that Dino Riders was just one of these things where the show itself, the animated show, was really, really simple. Very simple indeed. It was pretty much like Transformers, but they weren't robots. They were just like, the bad guys were like alien creatures, were mostly kind of like alien frogs, and they're basically they're basically like bugs, but they look like people. They're a bit weird. They're a little bit weird of the bad side. They're kind of like an alien, like mixture of different alien races that kind of have come together to make like an evil force that tries to overtake the galaxy, basically. And then you've got the good side, but they use like a telepathy, like a telepathic message. So they're kind of like saying, we are friends, and they try and live in harmony with the dinosaurs, but the bad guys kind of enslave them with like mind control helmets and things like that, and they put missiles on them and laser guns, which is fucking brilliant and awesome. It's just one of the most absurd things I could ever see as a kid, as this animated series, but it just worked for me. But when it comes to the toys themselves, I really would love to see them come back, because back in the day there was quite an advanced toy line. I remember not too long ago I watched someone else's video on YouTube, a pretty big YouTuber actually, and he kind of went back and talking about Dino Riders, and he spoke about the toy line itself, and he said that apparently later on a lot of the dinosaur toys were actually kind of used for something else later on. They were used for an educational thing for kids. Then all the mechanism inside was taken out because some of them most of them had this ability so they could walk, and there was like sounds. So like they had there was a toy of the T-Rex, and the T-Rex could actually walk, and it roared as well. I think it had flashing lights and everything like that, and a couple of them had the ability to kind of have this walking mechanism. So I think what they did is they took all that out, and it was just simply just an articulated little model. But they used the actual moulds for a different thing later on, and it was like an educational thing. I think they came out with like a magazine or something. You know, it's one of those things that I think, you know, kids today still like dinosaurs. You know, there's still plenty of stuff on TV talking about archaeology and talking about ancient times, and you know, there's still plenty of stuff. And kids, I mean, my little cousin William, he likes dinosaurs. He likes things like that. So I think it's something that could possibly be a viable thing if it came back, because little kids, especially little boys, I'm not saying little girls don't like them either, but little kids usually really do gravitate towards dinosaurs as in general. But then the other one I would like to see isn't an 80s thing. I think it came out in the early thousands. I think it might have been late 90s, early thousands, and I think it was on Jetix. I think it aired either Jetix or Fox Kids. And it's a series called Medabots. Now, not many people will probably know what Medabots is. You literally have to have maybe grown up in the 90s or kind of been around about 10 years old at the point of early thousands in order to understand what this series was, because yeah, I think it's a series that might have been skipped by people that were a bit older. Obviously, you know, it happens. But yeah, Medabots was a series that I used to watch when I was a kid. I was lucky enough as a kid to have Sky Digital, so I had Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Boomerang, Toonami, Fox Kids, then later Jetix, Disney Channel. I had all these channels that had a lot of these really awesome shows that were rerun from like the 80s and 70s. And then obviously there was a lot of new stuff come out in the 90s as well that was on those channels that I really enjoyed. And one of those shows obviously on Jetix was Medabots, and it's an anime, Japanese property, and it kind of borrows from the whole Digimon Pokemon thing a little bit, where it's a human character that has a companion. So Medabots is basically borrowing that principle and bringing it together, but instead there are mechanised robots with like AI intelligence. So you've got Medabi, who is the main character's Medabot, and what they do is that you've got this thing called a Medawatch, and you've got medals, and these medals are the things that give them the personality. So you put it in the back, and you put this token or medal in the back, and it kind of like programs them to kind of gives them their personality. And you can battle other Medabots with them. You can mix and match, swap parts. It was a really quite, for the time, it was actually quite in a clever concept. And it was quite fresh for the time as well, because there was nothing else quite like it. Even though it was kind of borrowing from the whole Pokemon Digimon thing, where it's a human with a companion, like a little companion, which it is. But it was kind of fresh to the point where it was little robot things that battled other robots, and you could swap out for parts. So when another Medabot... So in an official match, when a Medabot loses, you have the right to take a part from them. So you could take an arm, a leg, or whatever, and you could kind of build like all these spare parts for your Medabot, which was really cool. I kind of like that idea. And that's a toy line that has never really made a resurgence, and I think it would possibly work. I think it could work. I mean, I could be completely wrong. I mean, it's a series that aired probably nearly 20 years ago now. Maybe, give or take, 15 to 20 years ago. And when you bring something back into now 2019 from something that was aired 20 years ago, it's very difficult to try and kind of bring the market back. The only way they could bring back the market was to re-air Medabots on TV. You know, the only way would be to re-air the original series, because there's 3 seasons of it. It's all dubbed into English. They could re-air it again on Pop or whatever, or wherever you want to re-air it. Give kids a chance to experience the series, and if they enjoy it, then there's a possible viable market of bringing the toys back as well. Because the toys, I had a couple of them. I had these little miniatures that you could swap the parts around. So I had a Medabot, I had Medabots, and I had another one. I had about 3 or 4 of them. And what you could do is you could kind of, they were like this skeleton kind of thing, and you could kind of clip on the parts, and it was articulated. But what you could do is you could swap over the parts, so you could kind of mix and match them and things like that. So they had those, and then they had the real little miniature, just little figurine things that couldn't move. They were just collectibles. So the toy line wasn't really that vast. It was like really little trinket things and little things that you could kind of mix and match. But I think now that technology has really come in leaps and bounds, I really think that you could possibly maybe make an actual miniature, maybe like about maybe 1.5 to 2 foot tall little figure, actual articulated figure. But when you put the medal in the back, it activates it, and it interacts with other Medabots from the range. Now there is toys out there that have that principle where they recognise each other due to kind of like infrared or what have you. They kind of communicate with one another. So that technology is there now. Maybe it's a bit basic still, but it's there. So they could possibly use that, bring out Medabots on a couple of them, and they could kind of have them where you kind of use the watch to kind of move them forward and back and whatever. So the actual watch itself, where you control the Medabot, you could use that as like a remote control, so it kind of moves it around the house or wherever you are, and then you can kind of press it to kind of attack, like, you know, do the attacks or whatever. And you could do that very simply now. It would be quite expensive, but you could do that. You know, we have got that type of toy robotic stuff in order to make that a reality now. So I would love to see that. I would love to see actual little robots that you could battle that are actually from the show. I very highly doubt, because the thing is with Medabots, I think the license was lost. After it was dubbed, I think the company that dubbed Medabots went out of business. So the rights ended up kind of, I don't know if anyone's ever actually picked the rights back up. So it's one of those things is that it could never come back. Okay, so I'm just going to give this moment now. I've had a couple more suggestions, a couple people comment on Facebook, and I've had one from Gerry Ivy, I think it is, Ivy, and he said mask. Now, I've already mentioned about mask. I'm not going to go too much into that, but yeah, I really do think mask would be fantastic to see come back. I have, like I said earlier on in the video, I have heard rumours that he could be coming back, but I've not seen anything come to fruition. And also Neil Garrett, I think it is. I apologise if I've got your name wrong there. He came back to me saying He-Man and Visionaries. Now, I also mentioned about Visionaries earlier on in the video as well. But He-Man is certainly a property that has had a resurgence in the early thousands or mid thousands. I think maybe about 2003 to 2004 time. I think there was like a resurgence of the series. Because obviously you had the 80s property, then it came back in the thousands with like an updated version, a new series and a new toy line. And I don't think it lasted very long, the new toy line, but they keep bringing out like collector's editions, like proper collector's editions of the He-Man characters, because they've done She-Ra on Netflix. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the new She-Ra. But I would like to see maybe an up-to-date version of He-Man. See if they could maybe bring back the toy line as well. But anyway, so I've spoken for long enough. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon, and I'll be back very soon with more videos. And I'll probably be making, later on this week, I might make another TF Nation related video. I don't know what on yet, but I might make one more, or at least maybe one more. Because I don't want to, even though I have been making a lot of videos lately, and I've also made some on my vlog channel as well, but I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to completely overdo it and just make too many videos with no actual substance to them. I like to make a TF Nation video when there is actually a reason to make one. At the moment, there has been a few updates and announcements. There's been a new guest announcement, a couple of new guest announcements in the last couple of days. So I may make one later on in the week. I might wait and see if there's anything else announced over this weekend or whenever. So, because I think now all the guest announcements have been made. I think at the moment it's just schedule stuff like panels and things like that they're starting to bring to light. So yeah, I will probably be making a video at some point in the week, later in the week, for that. So anyway, thank you. Bye bye. See you all soon. Cheers.